So what we're going to do today is we're going to do some learning objectives, what we're going to learn today, and then we're going to do a little bit of introduction about what reading is. We're going to explain a bit more about reading, what are the academic reading skills, what is active and passive reading. We're going to practice a little bit more with reading techniques, and then also exercise a little bit with it, and also look later on how to read with better comprehension. Then at the end, we'll do some tips and an evaluation. Okay, this is a lot of information to the start, but we'll go through it slowly together. And again, if you have any questions, please let me know. Okay, first, before we start, I wanted to do it first, but I forgot. I want to introduce myself. My name is Gootje Visser. There's a collage next to it, so you can see who I am. I'm born and partly raised on Curaçao, and I studied educational sciences in the Netherlands, and I also worked at the University of Curaçao. And at the moment, I live on Bonaire, but I still work for the Haagse Hogeschool. The last couple of years, I worked for the Haagse Hogeschool at the study of pedagogy. As you can see a little bit there, so that's what I do. And also something nice to let you guys know that I wrote my thesis about reading comprehension skills. So this is really a topic that has my interest, and I hope I can learn you guys more about this topic today. Well, the learning objectives of today, of these workshops, is, and I hope at the end you guys will get tips and tools that will help you to gain insight in reading techniques, develop your reading skills, and use strategies to help you get the most out of the time you spend reading. And at the end, we will evaluate this. But first, a little small introduction. If you ask yourself the question, how fast do you read? Because I don't know if you've ever seen this, but there are people that are very well trained in reading. And one of the world's fastest readers reads 30,000 words per minute. We call it WPM. They say adults who are considered good readers usually read about 200 till 400 words per minute. So I'm going to ask you the question to roughly think of how many words per minute do you read, do you think? You can put it in the chat if you'd like. Just a roughly idea. How many words per minute do you think you read? And share it. Oh, I see some nice counts. It's really difficult to think, huh? Yeah, great guys. Okay. Go on. Well, then if we have those words, later on I'll focus more on these words per minute. But first, when we see what is reading actually, because we're talking about reading so much, but what is the definition? What is it? And why do we need it? Well, reading is typically defined as the processing of textual information so as to recover the intended meaning of each word, phrase, or sentence, like it says in this slide. But for the most part, authors, the ones who wrote the thing you're reading, would like the readers to understand what they intend to communicate and to understand all of the words in the text. And often the goal of reading is to learn something new, whether it's in fact from a textbook, a story, from a novel, or instructions from a manual. Successful reading thus requires more than recognizing a sequence of individual words. So it's not only the individual words you're reading, you have to also make relationships among them and making inferences about something that maybe they mean with it or entitles it. Might be involved in the scenario being described. So this is a lot of information, but the important thing is that you have to know that reading is you have to comprehend something. They want you to comprehend something. But this is what I was promised. This is a reading rate calculator. I put down a website. I'm also going to give you later on Juliette's going to send to you this PowerPoint, and there's also this link in it, and you can try it out. There's a calculator you can see here that helps you to calculate, okay, how many words per minute or how many pages do I read. So here you can see that none of us read at the constant rates. It depends on the text, of course. Maybe you recognize it, that of course the difficulty and the purpose of the reading task or the text really influence how long you take. So this calculator also has it in it. So the reading rate is a function of 3 factors. It's the page density. So how many words are there on that page? It's the text difficulty. How difficult is this text? Is it like really something really new for you? Or is it a topic that you have read like 1,000 times already and like, okay, it's not really a difficult topic? It really depends on how many words per minute you will read. And then the third thing is the reading purpose. Do you read it just to understand a little bit, or do you read it, you have to really know it by heart? That also really defines how you will read it. So you can try that later on. So you can see if you do this, it gives you like an estimated reading rate. So you know if you're going to plan for your reading tasks, okay, so many pages per hour do I need. As you are all on the school or on the university, you all have to read an academic reading skills. And I think you've heard that word a lot of times, but academic reading skills ask more of you. Reading in an academic context is different from an everyday reading. Like, you know, academic reading requires a more active, probing, and recursive strategy than does recreational reading. And it's also like essential for, if you have to like a writing assignment, it's also an essential skill. Reading strategically is therefore integral to the process of understanding your topic, finding your research materials, developing your ideas. So you can see academic reading consists out of asking questions, you say, reflecting on relationships among parts of the text, interpreting meanings, making connections, refining your topic and purpose. Now, I think there's like an important question I always ask myself. Do I need to read it? Well, I think that's a question that a lot of you have in your minds. I had it a lot of times in my mind. Yes, sometimes the answer is yes. And your professor, your lecturer will tell you, sometimes you have to do a detailed reading. I explain later on what that is, or sometimes you have to do a revision reading. But a lot of other times, except I think a lot of other times, reading also exists out of scanning, skimming, and selecting. Probably, maybe you guys already know these terms, these words like scanning, skimming, selecting, but I will explain to you later what I mean with it. Quickly, some more information before we start practicing. Skimming, that is reading with the goal to quickly move through the text to find a specific word or piece of information to get a general idea of the text context. There are researchers to say like, okay, oh, it goes too fast. How did it happen? Yeah. There are researchers to say like, okay, the faster you read, the lower the comprehension like gets. But they say with a lot of training, you can get comprehension. But of course, if you read real fast, sometimes comprehension will go a little bit down. So that is skimming. Skimming is find a word or piece of information to get a general idea. So you can skim through the text. There's scanning. That is more kind of locating precise information. So you know, okay, I know some key terms or expressions where I'm looking for. For example, you're writing and you want to write an essay about a topic, about a kind of topic, and you have this, for example, about my topic of my thesis was comprehension skills. So when I was reading a text, I was looking for the word comprehension, for example. So like scanning the text, like, okay, where are the key terms I want to know? So that is scanning. You run your eyes over the text, looking for those words you really want to know. So there was scanning. And then I said there were some times you really have to read carefully. And those were the detailed reading and revision reading. Most of the times your teacher will tell you when you have to really focus on this text, or you know yourself. Okay, detailed reading allows you to critically consider aspects of the text. This may involve close reading of the entire text, but also sometimes you can scan first and then just only do the detailed reading for specific parts, important sections. I said, okay, this is where all the keywords are. This is an important section. I'm going to read this part more carefully and more detailed and more focused. And then there's revision reading. This type of reading involves reading rapidly through the material, which you're already familiar, in order to confirm knowledge and understanding. So you already know this, but you want to refresh your memory. Maybe you know this, like there are lots of lectures already about it, and you've read the book, but you want to refresh a little bit before the exam maybe, and then you go rapidly through the material to confirm your knowledge and understanding. Okay, so how to read an academic text in general steps, because there are, you see today, I will give you a lot of information, because there are lots of researchers, they all think, okay, this is the best for reading strategies and reading skills. But first I wanted to give you some general steps, because there are a lot of strategies and you also have to choose what works best for you. So before I'll dive into all those strategies, I wanted to show you, okay, what are the general steps to read an academic text before. So start first before you start reading. You got the papers, you got all the literature you have to read before you put it on the table, and you start. First, you skim the table of contents, the headings, the subheadings. So you go quickly through the text. Okay, what is all about? The table of contents. What are the headings? What are the subheadings? Okay, check. Then you read the introduction and a conclusion. If you've done that, then you scan the relevant sections to locate where your topic is discussed. So that's again the scanning. So okay, you look for the words where your topic is discussed. So for example, you want to read something about, like I said, comprehension skills. Okay, you go through the text. Okay, this is an important section. I really have to read this one. Then you've done that. You got your paper in front of you again, and you said, okay, now you're going to read active and critically, and examine the diagrams and figures. Okay, the first thing, reading active and critically. Critically is if you're reading, you ask in your mind, maybe some of you recognize it, you ask yourself questions, or you write them down. Okay, what is this about? And reading actively means sometimes taking notes, maybe something on the side, you write something a little bit down. So you really are focused on what you're going to read. And what I say about examine diagrams and figures, those are most, the writer wants to show you something important with the diagrams and figures. They're information dense. So it's important to always check the figures and the diagrams. After that, you're done. So you read active and critically for the parts that were important. Okay? But that's what you already did the day before reading. And after that, after reading, you think over what you have read. Like make a brief summary of the most important parts, what was really the main topic, what was important here. You just make like a small summary. It doesn't have to be big. A few notes is also okay.
Reading actively. Is taking notes the only way you can read actively, or do you have other examples in mind?
We've got lots of examples in mind, and taking notes is one example. But I'll focus it on, I think in about 3 slides we'll go there.
Okay, cool.
That's a good question, thanks. read into abstracts, make a brief summary after. Nice, thank you, Stephanie. Sometimes while reading, I tend to highlight. Yeah, it's also a strategy. Now I'm going to ask again a question to you guys. And this is the one that was already asked a little bit about the active and passive reading. We're going to focus on that part a little bit more, because what is active reading? Okay, if you see these questions, answer these questions for yourself with a yes or no. Do you read with the main purpose to get through the assigned pages? Do you pay little attention to identifying and remembering the main ideas? Do you feel little engagement with reading? Do you avoid rereading sections or asking questions? If you read these questions, what do you think? Is it more yes or more no? Mostly yes, Sangeeta says. So Sangeeta is I get distracted easily, so I do my reading when there's quiet. Yes, nice, Jamil. Okay. Well, if you answered yes to any of these, you may be reading more passively than actively and missing maybe some opportunities. I know there's one thing I've already really noticed, and that is in my own experience as a student, that sometimes, have you ever read a page from a textbook and at the end of the page you realize you have no idea what you just read? So you're like reading and you think, oh, what? I just stopped reading for like 50 minutes, but I have no idea what I've been reading. You guys recognize that sometimes? Yeah. Then you have been more passive. But there are successful readers develop active reading habits that improve their reading comprehension, their speed, and also their enjoyment of reading. That you can enjoy your reading more. Okay, let's focus on that. What that active reading is. Why active reading? Well, active reading is more like a discussion. It's between you and the material. It involves repeated questioning, critiquing, re-examination, development of ideas, and the benefits are that more efficient reading, more efficient study time, you've got greater concentrations and you focus while you read, and it will improve the understanding of the key information. But like I said before, it's not possible, I think, to read the entire book actively. So you have to skim and scan first, okay, which part is important to read really actively. That's the important part before know, okay, what parts are really important for me now to focus and to read active. That was one thing I wanted to tell you guys. Yeah, like Amanda said, sometimes your head goes somewhere else. I know that. So you have to really focus on the things. Okay, now this is a focus time and this is not a focus time. Okay, I'll do some comparing. There's a big sheet with some words on it. A good way to understand active reading is by comparing to what it is and what it's not. So here you see during the active reading, and on the other column you see during the passive reading. So you guys can read it slowly if you can see the difference, and maybe you recognize it. For example, during active reading, you examine the purpose of the assignment before reading. You preview a text before reading by skimming headings, topics, syntax, keywords. You read with questions in mind. You stop to monitor your understanding of the text as you read.
A lot of the times, sorry, I do preview the headings of the paragraphs before I read the entire thing, but it's not to see what I have to read, it's to see how much I have to read.
Yeah, it's also important because it's one of the before readings. You have to know how much is it and when do I have to read actively or not. So it's not a bad skill, it's a good skill. Good, thanks for sharing. Okay, then I will just let you shortly know that what are those active reading strategies. I will also share in the PowerPoint more PDF with which explains this more. What they say is one of the strategies are visualize. So visualize means like sometimes I do it a lot because I'm a really visual learner. I read, and then to understand it a little, to comprehend it better, I make like a little drawing or a scheme, or I draw dots. Maybe some of you recognize that. It helps me to understand the text better. So visualize. Predict about what is this going to be. You see, you read the title and you predict where is it going to be about. Connect. You're reading and you're thinking, okay, but I've read it somewhere else and this and that, and you can make connections in your head, and you maybe on the sidelines you write like little notes about what the connections are. Clarify. Maybe you have more questions, or you want to research it a little bit more. So you highlight it maybe, and then you're going to research a little bit more. You read with questions in your head. Like also the one underneath says questions. You read and you have questions about it, and you write it down. But the one important active reading strategy is reading with questions. So what do they mean with it? So you keep yourself active. And in the end, evaluate. Talk with someone about it, or write a little piece about it, or try to explain it to someone else. On to the next slide, because we have more to do today. Because there's another technique of reading fast. Now we've learned a little bit more about how to read active, which is really important. But sometimes there are times you need to read fast. You've got like tons of papers you have to read, and you have not so much time, and you have to really use the technique of speed reading. Speed reading is not always easy to do in the beginning. It takes time, and it takes practice. So like I told you in the beginning, I put some exercises in the PowerPoints on the last slides, on the sources. I put some exercises for you guys to practice this a little bit more. Because it takes time, and practice, like lots of things do. Speed reading is an approach to reading that can help you to get through a text more quickly and fluently. However, speed reading is not something that can be learned, like I told you, overnight. It takes time, effort, and practice to increase your reading speed. And the following techniques we're going to exercise later are ways to practice and experiment with speeding up your reading. And so you can try them out, and hopefully they would give some positive impact on your ability to get through that reading. One of the first methods, maybe you have heard of it, is the pacing method. I'm going to explain it a little bit, and then I'm going to show you a video in which someone who is doing this will show you, because some of your visual learners will maybe learn better from it. The pacing method is using a pen, your finger, a ruler, pen. I'm looking for examples, a ruler or a book or piece of paper, anything that can help you. There are also like things you can use online, like a reading ruler. Google Chrome has one, maybe you know it. So if you do reading text lots online, you can also use this method, the same as you do it on paper. So it's not necessary to do it on paper. So you use a pen, your finger, a ruler, or a piece of paper to help you pace yourself through a page of text. Because your eyes, there are a lot of psychology studies also about this. Your eyes go from here to there if you read. And your eyes need like focus points. And this method will help you to keep those focus points. The pacer will help your eyes to move more smoothly and efficiently across the page. Okay, and you see on the figure next on this slide, you see like there are different methods. On the first picture, you see like two arrows on the page, on the text you have to read. So what they do is they put like, you can put like two lines on the thing you read. So you know, okay, I have to scan in between those. And if you get more practice, you can make it more narrow. So your eyes go only on the middle, like reading. And you use the pencil to go through the words. because, go to the next slide, because in the beginning, when we're kids, we're used to reading word for word for word. The teacher told us you have to read this word, each word you had to read. But now we're students, adults, and we have to read a lot, and we have to read, we become better readers, and we have to read, and the fixations will become different. So we come in more clusters and chunkings. So we read in chunks, word, like word, as you see in the picture below. And more experienced readers do like the lowest picture, like word. And your pencil will help if you read a page to do this. You hold your page and you do it like this. I hope I explained it well, but I also show a video. If someone already has questions, or please let me know if it's not clear. So what you have to do is like I have here like an article, an academic article here next to it. I have no clue what kind of topic I chose, but there is something about nursing and education academic articles. You use your finger, you draw the lines, and in between you read. S line or Z line, yes, nice. So some of you are really experienced already. Okay, then I'll just quickly going to show the movie. It's not the all 9 minutes, it's only 1 minute I'm going to show you.
What we're going to do now is use a pacer. So you could use your finger, and now you are actually going to track with your finger, trace underneath the line like so. And try to think of 2 fixation points per line for your eye. But this will keep you from bouncing up to previously read material. We've all had the experience of being really sleepy, say, and feeling like you've read the same 2 lines 5 or 6 times. This is partially because your eyes are tired and you end up back skipping and jumping all over the place. Right? So then you use your marker, your pacer, to move down the page. And the last test I would have you run, or experiment prior to remeasurement. So let's do that for 10 minutes. And you've moved in the boundaries, the edges of the page, so to speak, where you stop and go to the next line. And then you're minimizing the number of fixations and you're preventing back.
This is help explain a little bit how we showed it. Are there any more questions? So I put some more exercises, and like I told on the PowerPoints to really, because you really have to practice with this, or how to do this. And what is really in research say, how more you practice it, how more you read, the better you get at it. But there is another strategy I want to discuss with you guys. It's not really a fast reading strategy, but it's a really common fast comprehension reading strategy. It's called the SQ4R. Well, again, I put this down in before, during, and after, because I always think it helps to make it more scheduled before. The SQ4R exists out of a few parts. It's a method that identifies the components of active reading. So this really helps you with active reading and provides a guide for navigating among them. It exists out of the S is for scanning each page quickly. Then the Q is for questioning. So as you scan through the page, you make questions. You write down, for example, there's like a header or title, and you write down a question for it. Then there are 4 R's. Our first R is for reading. That does not mean reading every word, but reading the parts that are important. Then there's the R for reflecting. Think about what you just have read. Then there's the R for reciting. Recite it aloud to yourself as you read. So you're allowed to talk to yourself while reading. I don't know if anyone ever used it, but it really sometimes helps if you say it aloud to comprehend it better. And then there's the R for review. Review what you've just read. tell someone or write it down and make a little summary. So they say, before reading, there's the survey and the question. So the scanning and the questioning, the S and the Q. Then during reading, there's the read, reflect, and decide. After reading, there's the review part. I've also got a video about this that maybe explains it a little bit better. But please let me know if you already got some questions. Someone already does recite. Okay, nice. Here is a movie. I hope it loads. It's a little bit longer, but I think we have time. It explains the strategy of the SQ4R a little bit better. I'm not seeing anything. I hope it works.
SQ4R is a method of reading text that allows you to truly absorb the material you're studying. It places emphasis on translating the text into your own words so that you really understand it. SQ4R contains 6 steps, as the name indicates: survey, question, read, respond, record, and review. First, you survey the text. So before you read a chapter of your textbook, for example, you should first skim through it. Read the titles, subtitles, and captions. Look at any charts, pictures, or graphs. Finally, read through the chapter summary at the end. If there are summary questions, read those too. It will give you an idea of what's important in the chapter. Next, we move into question. Turn each subheading or title into a question. So here, the subheading is communication technology. The question in the context of this chapter would be, how has communication technology changed the world of work? You can keep it in your head or write it down to remember it. Then ask yourself if you already know anything about the subject. Maybe you remember your professor saying something about it in class. Keep that in mind as well. Now it's time to read. But don't just read the chapter to get through it. Try to actively read. Think about the questions you asked and search for the answer. Remember the questions from the summary and try to find their answers too. Focus on one section at a time and make sure you understand it. If you don't understand it, reread it. Look at the charts or images and connect them to the text. You'll then be ready to respond. Summarize what you just read to yourself and make a special note of key concepts. It helps to recite your answers out loud in order to engage another one of your senses. Now try to answer your original question in your own words. You may also find that your question wasn't actually the right question to ask. What is qualitative research might not work if the passage was written to provide examples rather than a definition. You'd have to change your question to, what are some examples of qualitative research methods? Now that you're sure you understand the chapter, you can move on to recording the information. This can be done in whichever way you find most helpful. You can highlight key passages or write notes in your own words. Of course, writing your own notes gives you the advantage of actively learning the info, as well as giving you a portable pack of notes you can study from anywhere without lugging a textbook around. It will make the next step significantly easier as well. The most important thing is that you understand the material before you record it. Don't attempt to do both at once. Finally, the last step, review. Now that you've finished with the chapter, read over your notes. Now use the summary questions and questions you created to quiz yourself. Recite your answers out loud to help you remember. It's also helpful to regularly review. If you review once a week, studying for exams will be much easier. You'll simply be remembering information you already know rather than relearning information you forgot.
Yeah. Okay, as you saw in the video, she used some different words than I use here. Like the, I think she said scanning, she used another word, she used survey. And I think she said for reflecting and reciting, they also use another word, but it means the same, the steps are the same, but they use different words for it. Okay, I know this worksheet has a lot of information because there's so many strategies. And this is also important thing is to choose a strategy that works best for you and that suits best for the purpose of your reading, of course. Because there's so many strategies, I put some more in here to choose for you guys. because everyone has also his own learning style, and this therefore also their own reading style. Because if you're a more visual learner, it also, you also sometimes reads easier if you visualize, for example. Okay, one of the first things is ask yourself pre-reading questions. It's also a really active reading strategy. For example, you ask yourself, what is the topic? What do I already know about it? Why has the instructor assigned this to me anyways, in this point in the semester? Why do I have to read this? Ask yourself before that. Then you know, okay, how am I going to read this? And why does he want it? It helps you to define the words also. And familiar terms. Do you see the text and you think, okay, all those words I've never heard of, especially if you read in a language that's not your language, identify them, look them up first, define them, write them down. If there's like a term that you have no clue of, before you start reading, do that first. And then there's the thing of asterisks. You see the little star, the asterisks. I know I never used it, but I know a lot of people use this one. They bracket the main idea of reading and put an asterisk next to it. So they pay a particular attention to, for example, the introduction or the opening paragraphs, and this is really important information. I put like a little asterisk next to it. And there is like a discussable fourth point here. Some people say, okay, this really works for me to highlight things. But in research lately, they say there's discussion about it. They say, no, don't use a highlighter. Put down your highlighter, but make marginal notes or comments instead. Like every time you feel the urge to highlight something, write instead. That's what they say. Okay, don't go highlighting it, just put like an asterisk next to it and just write down the keywords to help you recall where important points are discussed. Like in the section next to it, write down the keywords. But of course, if you're really highlighting really helps you, keep using it. But if it doesn't help you, maybe try this.
Excuse me, may I make a comment?
Of course.
So I am the type of a person, if you open my book, you will see all colors of your highlighter crayons, so to speak. But
Sure.
I have to say that it helps me to grasp the text. But as of late, I've also started to jot down some notes. And the thing that you just said about reciting, it really makes me, it really forces me to really make an effort to understand exactly what is being explained in the text, because it's one thing for you to highlight and to make any notes, but it's another thing for you to be able to understand it in your own words. And that's the way you are able to reproduce the information put to you. So, and that takes a bit more time. I do see that it takes more time, but it's far more effective. For me, it's a bit more effective. So I like the reciting part though.
Yeah, I'm really happy to hear. Thanks for your explanation. Of course, use the things that help, and what you explained is that it's a deeper level of learning. It's a deeper. If you recite, it helps you, gives you a deeper level of understanding and comprehension. Really nice to hear.
Thank you.
Then there is another thing that sometimes helps people. It's write questions in the margins. I've taught you in this workshop many times already, but the word questions helps you be active. Visualize. For the visual learners like me, I always draw little dolls around it to understand this, and arrows and things like that, like an important word, and then draw around it. But only use this if this is your learning style, if it helps you. What does it say? That is important part. For yourself, say it. Okay, what does this really mean? Try to say it in one sentence. or summarize it in your own words, like you already explained. That really helps. Or what maybe sometimes you've already done that, make your own exam question. For example, you have to learn a lot of text for a multiple choice test, for example, or another test. Try to make your own exam question. You think, okay, that's a little bit weird because you get exams. No, but it gives you a deeper level of understanding. If you can make your own exam questions, you understand it better. It's a more fun way also, if you like it. Or make your own Kahoots. I don't know if someone knows about Kahoots, like a quiz, make your own quizzes. It gets you more playful and enjoying. Teach what you've learned to someone else. Try to explain what you just have read. I've read something about this and that, and then all of a sudden, while you're explaining, you think, now I get it. But I'm sorry, there are more tips. These are some more general tips. They say, practice reading. The more you read, the better you get at it. And that's something I already taught in the workshop, I think, but practicing really helps. The more you read, the better you get at it. Find your reading corner, quiet spots. Some people don't like that. They just want music on their ears, and find your favorite spots for learning, for reading. Preview the texts. Use smart starting strategies. That's also something I just want to let you know. Maybe some of you have like start and you think, okay, but where to start? So there's so many things in my head. There are more strategies, but I think that's more for some another workshop. How to use those starting strategies. I will put some in a link about it in the PowerPoints for you to know. Highlight annotate text. It's discussable, I already told you, but you can really use it well if you use it with the reciting with it, for example. Write down the main points. It's also something we already discussed about. Write questions as you read. We also already discussed it. Look up words you don't know. Make connections in the text and discuss what you've read. That's also something we already heard. So this is a little bit of reciting myself. But I'm really curious because it's already almost the end of the workshop. What works for you? You can tell. Did you learn something new? Did you learn some new strategies, or what strategies work for you?